Welcome to Thrashcast, episode 23. Tonight we're going to be discussing Evildead Annihilation of Civilization. That came out in 1989. Before we start, yeah, Billy's got it there. Before we start, I'm just going to usher in my partners in crime tonight, both Bill and Jimmy. How are you both doing tonight, guys?
All good.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. So, as I said, this is episode 23. And before we start, I just wanted to just basically do a little bit of housekeeping so you can find us if you're looking for the podcast. You can find us at Horror Metal Sounds, www.horrormetalsounds.com, or if you go to our YouTube channel at ken.2468, and you can find us there, and all our podcasts are there. So if you want to go through all 22 previous episodes, you can. All the views are doing good, so we're really happy about that. Oh, and also I forgot too. We always keep forgetting this one. You can catch us on Spotify. So if you want an audio version of the podcast, you can also look for us there too. So one quick thing though before we start, just if you are on our YouTube channel and you're watching our videos, just please like, subscribe. We do appreciate it. We would like to hear from you with comments and suggestions. So that's all good. The views are up. So we're really happy about that. So it's just, something we hopefully everyone's appreciating and can catch the content there. Okay. So before we start tonight's episode, we'll do our usual, I guess, before the breakdown, our usual news and spinning topics for this week. So Billy, why don't you start us off with some news and some spinning? I know you're away on a festival, so take it away, sir.
Yeah, so I guess just on wood spinning, this treat was waiting for me when I got home. So this is the new, I guess it's a couple of months old now, Morbid Saint, Swallowed by Hell. I think it's a fantastic album.
Yes.
Kind
Uh,
of
I love it.
thrashy, a little bit of death metal thrown in there. Yeah, I personally think it's as strong as they don't have that much material, but it's as strong as some of their even the debut. I
Yeah.
think so, and unfortunately, that one's been really hard to get.
Oh,
I got it like on vinyl or even CD. Like I did a special order through that Quebec-based store I use, Le Noise, and they're fantastic. That's where I pretty much buy all my vinyl. They had to do a special order to get it, and then it took like 2 months to come in. It's really only sold in Europe, so like there is no like Canadian or US pressing. So yeah, so that's what's spitting. So there was a bunch of stuff waiting for me when I return. So I'll have some
cool.
content for future wood spinning as well. And then, yeah, maybe Ken mentioned festival. Just give a quick rundown. Last week, I talked about the Vakken Festival. This time I was at it was pretty much a week later in England, probably about 2.5 hour drive outside of London, which is usually where people know. Like it's located in I mean, my geography is not great, the town or the city of Derbyshire, and when I hear locals say that name, it sounds nothing like that. So I'm saying the way it's spelled. So. But yeah, the festival was good. It was really warm, like crazy hot. Like towards the end of the festival, they actually had to stop the showers to spare the water because people were drinking so much water. So they had to do some quick planning there. Pretty big crowds. I mean, it's nothing like the size of Vakken. The capacity is about 20K. It felt like you could also buy day tickets to this festival, so that's
uh,
interesting. A lot of European festivals don't let you do that. But on the popular days, it was crowded. Like even like at Wacken when there's 85,000 people, like the field's huge, right? It,
Yeah.
it looks like everyone's crammed together, but you could actually walk like through people. Here, this you're just jammed in. So like, yeah, I definitely felt a bit claustrophobic on the site. They did like what Wacken did last year, a nice tribute to Lemmy. They had his ashes, his boots, his hat, all set up in like what do you call it? Like his room when he did festivals, how he had his backstage area set up. So that was kind of cool. Also, kind of camping, I was done. I was pretty much done after whacking like all those days sleeping on the hard ground. And then I had to do part two. So yeah, that was a bit rough in your 50s. But I got through that. So that's kind of interesting. And one thing that's kind of cool, I like they have some different rules for different camping areas. Like there's some campgrounds where there's a sound curfew.
Oh,
So that's really unique, right? Because like at Wacken, like people are partying and blaring music all night long. Because you got people from all over the world in different time zones. So I appreciated that. So the festival runs Thursday, but not many bands play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Only four stages, and really only one big like outdoor stage. The rest are smaller in tents. In terms of highlights, just quickly, like Thursday, there wasn't that many bands who played, but Hell Ripper and Evergrey were two great bands. Evergrey being the prog metal, and a cool band, Tail Gunner, who
yeah, I've heard
are
of them.
really kind of cool. They have like a Maiden type sound.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool. Friday was Enslaved,
Nice.
Nervosa, Grand Magus, which is a cool Swedish band that I don't
Yeah,
think I've
yeah,
ever seen
they're cool.
before. Opeth, Rotting Christ, and Hatebreed. Saturday was maybe the Saturday and Sunday were the better days. Saturday was Deicide. It was kind of cool to see Forbidden with Chewy playing guitar. So that was kind of
Nice.
he pretty much stuck to the script, so he didn't break out into any unusual Voivod solos or anything like that. So Unleash the Archers were fantastic again. The crowd loved them, just the same as in Germany the week before. And then another female thrash band, death band, Crypta. So that was kind of cool. Then Sunday, the last day, because I missed them in Germany. I chose to see other bands, but here I watched Amon Amarth. So that was
Oh
cool.
yeah, cool.
Carcass. One of my a band I love, Soen, which is like a
Oh,
progressive
cool.
melodic, all former like a lot of them were death metal musicians in the past, members of Opeth, the original Opeth drummer. It's his band. Then Zentrix doing all of
Mhm.
Shattered Existence, and Sadis was pretty cool too. I haven't seen them in ages. So yeah, a good festival all around. Yeah, it's about 180 pounds. So that's you got to convert that back. Pounds are way more than US or Canadian dollars. But yeah, overall a good festival. I mean, if you like something smaller, I would recommend it, but it's also pretty crowded. So
Yeah,
even though it's smaller, it feels like a busy festival. So but yeah, I mean, I would do it again, but I'm not kind of in a rush. Like I find camping two weekends in a row, like it was like 6 days camping and whacking, and then 3 days later camping for like 4 more days. So it just it's rough for the 52-year-old body. But yeah,
I
that's
Yeah.
bet.
my son.
Yeah, I bet. Well, it sounds like you've seen a lot of bands, which
Yeah,
is great.
yeah.
So good times. And Jim, what about you for like items? Do you have anything on spinning or news?
Oh yeah. So I got a lot of stuff.
Cool.
Start off with the Blind Guardian Revisited for Somewhere Far Beyond. This arrived wicked, wicked. It's re-recorded, definitely updated. I know they redid it in 2007 with a remix, but this is actually really cool. Definitely worth the money to pick it up for fans. You guys, I think, will really, really like it.
Cool.
Ken, I picked this up, Patriarchs in Black.
Oh yeah, that's a great
Um,
album. Yeah.
you know, you did a review on this, I think a month or so ago, maybe
Yep.
a little longer, and sold me on it. I mean, I'm a big Typo Negative fan, so that's really, really cool. I also got the new Hammerfall, which,
Ooh, that's good.
you know, it's almost like a symphonic kind of weak power metal week for me, but this one's really, really cool. I really like it. It's, you know, it's Hammerfall, so I mean, what's really not to like? You're getting what
True.
you're getting with it, and it's awesome. And last but not least, I got a thrash band from Brazil called Blackening. This album, Awakening Rage, I did a review on it
Cool.
last year. It came up in my sort of kind of, somebody bought this, they bought that, and I was like, oh yeah, I never did pick that up. Got it for a good price, and it's more of a blackened thrash band, but really, really cool.
Okay.
But awesome band for sure. So just a few things I'm spinning there, guys.
Cool.
Any news items, Jim, or?
Not really. I mean, I would assume you're going to bring up Death Angel, so I kind of.
Actually, I wasn't going to because
Oh, okay.
I figured one of
Well,
you
then I'll
guys
bring
were
it
going to
up.
bring it up. Like I for sure I was thinking you, Jim. Actually.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, the news that got released a few days ago was that they've been there. They had to drop out of the Wasp tour for the North American tour, which kind of sucks because I know, and they're being replaced by Armored Saint, which is really, really cool. But, you know, Armored Saint just kind of came through, you know, with Queensryche and that to a lot of dates, and nothing wrong with that. But I think I know Billy made a comment I saw that he'd much rather see them with Death Angel, and I think
Yeah, yeah.
so would I. But then we find out that Death Angel actually, there's a little bit of heated strife there in the band.
Mhm.
Some of the members have spoken out that you know, it's, and just judging by what's been said, is essentially they're kind of left kind of holding the bag a bit and waiting to see what Mark does with Kerry King. And I think the dates for Kerry King's South American tour sort of you know, they clash with the dates of this tour. So you know, hey, you know, everybody's got an opinion on it. I'm reading a lot of stuff. Maybe they could find a new singer to help fill some dates in or something. I mean, Death Angel's such a hard touring band. They've been everywhere. As I think Billy and Ken, you guys have seen them a couple times last year or whatever. And you know, it's kind of sad, but I mean, I guess you look at it from Mark's point of view, you get a chance to jump on with Kerry King, and I'm hearing that their tour with Lamb of God is just absolutely kicking it, and they're doing really, really well. I think they've got like a 45-minute set, but I think it's being very well received, and I can imagine probably the payday on that's a little bit better. And I did the review for Horror Metal Sounds on Kerry King's new album there a couple of months, I think in June when it was released, and in my sort of background checking and stuff, there was an interview there, and some of the members were talking about that as soon as the touring's kind of slows down in the winter, they're jumping right back in 2005. And I think Kerry has some of the new album already written, and I think they've already got some stuff done, and they're planning to hit it out in, I think, the spring and summer of next year, 2025, a new album. So if that's the case, I can see this becoming maybe a more permanent gig, maybe a more permanent thing, much to the, I'm a huge Death Angel fan, so, you know, I wouldn't want to see that come to an end for Mark. So,
Well,
Yeah.
Rob sings. He could sing it. So I mean, why not get
yeah,
him to sing? You know.
exactly.
Like this came up, I don't remember, was it during our Death Angel podcast where we were saying,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, how will this hurt Death Angel?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, we were all, but like, yeah, I mean, I thought for sure it was going to be the nail in the coffin, that Kerry would be like very strict with Mark, and Kerry would come first, and this seems to be the case, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of sad.
Totally sad.
right? Like, because the band's been together so long. Like,
Yeah.
I hear you, Jim. Like it's a bigger paycheck. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
And he's getting older, right? He's not going to be doing this like in 30 years from now, Mark. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's so rough on his bandmates, right? Like they're
Yeah.
left with nothing, right? Touring is the only way they make money.
Yeah, no, you're
Yeah.
right. And I mean, to happen 2 weeks before the tour starts too is
Yeah.
just not cool. I mean, kudos to Armored Saint, and and hats off to Armored Saint. Billy, I think you posted from the Metal Voice that article
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
John brought a fan from the hospital. Was it Copenhagen?
Yeah.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
stage,
It
and
was cool.
yeah, that was really cool. I mean, a class act all the way around. For me, I mean, I haven't seen. If I may decide to make the trek to go see Wasp in Quebec City, it's a bit closer. Uh, if I can in November, and seeing Armored, I've never seen Armored Saints, so it'll be cool. But I really got to admit, I'd never seen Death Angel, one of my favorite thrash bands of all time. That would have been really cool. And a lot of people were ripping this up right from the start, saying, well, they don't, it was Blackie. He kicked them off because they're not, a more traditional sort of metal style like Wasp. But nah, that didn't have nothing to do with that. I mean, when you're looking at it, you're looking at the facts. All the reviews I read of Carrie's solo project touring is phenomenal, and I've seen the footage when they do like Rain and Blood. I think they only do a couple of Slayer songs. I don't think it's huge amount, and that's pretty commendable. I mean, I know the set's only 45 minutes, and they're probably going to start doing their own kind of mini headline in smaller venues. But if they've got a second album coming out that quick, then this is just, he probably has a ton of material, either maybe from his Slayer days to what he's been working on when he was semi-retired to now. I can imagine he seems to be wanting to chomp at the bit and really go forward with it, and it seems to be successful. But yeah, Billy, like you say, not cool leaving like, it's one thing when you bring up like Jason Newsted leaving Flotsam and Jetsam, that was at the start. And same
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
with Hammett leaving, and they're not the voice of the band either, but Hammett
No.
leaving Exodus, that was at the start. So these guys were young and they were resilient. You got to wonder if the members, the guys left over, do they even have the energy to kind of want to regroup and reform? I really hope they do, and I really hope they do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the thing with Exodus, right? I mean, Death Angel and Exodus are kind of at that same, sort of level to some
Yeah.
degree, right? Like, and when Exodus went on hold for Gary, like the band was all frustrated, right? They were on social
Yeah.
media, not being able to tour and make any money, right? Like, it really sucks.
And you
Yeah.
know what? The Kerry King's band could become a headliner hell of a lot quicker. Like Death Angel
Oh yeah.
still,
Yeah.
like I think on that concert you guys went to go see there, where it was I think it was Testament, Exodus, Death Angel. I don't know if there was anybody else there, but like Death Angel was first, and then Exodus, and then Testament was the headliner. So there's still, as a band with such a 30 some odd 40-year career, they're still opening and still got that middle slot kind of mentality. I could see Carrie's band doing their own headlining. I mean, just based on the pedigree of Slayer alone, that's really helping them out. I mean, what can you just can't argue with that. But I
No.
just think it's kind of a shitty move to do that to your brothers. And it's not that he's left. We don't know that for sure, but it sure sounds that way.
Yeah. It's really sad. It's
Yeah.
totally sad. All right, so I don't have much tonight either, but there was one news item that I just recently saw. I didn't realize that Max Cavalera has actually revitalized his nail bomb project, the kind of
Oh,
like
nice.
industrial thrash act. Well, on November 9th in Arizona, he's doing his Max Cavalera Dynasty show, where it's all bands that he's been involved with, and his sons all
Nice.
taking part in it. So that should be kind of interesting. So, like, you're going to have on this show, you're going to have Insight, Go Ahead and Die, Soulfly. So
Oh
it's kind
yeah.
of interesting. Everyone's going to be there on the show. And I think this is like for a one time thing where the nail bomb is coming back, and he's got his son Igor
Yeah.
playing guitar on this one, and he's got his other son Richie playing it inside. So it's totally like a family affair. So
And their last that Soulfly album, Totem,
yeah,
in 2022,
yeah.
was absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
What
Yeah,
a great album.
yeah, I bought that album too. I love that album.
Yeah.
It's really,
Yeah.
really strong. There hasn't really been a bad Soulfly album, to be
No,
honest. They've all
that's
been
true.
pretty solid albums. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a one night, I think it's a one night event, but he's going to be like dog tired by the time that show ends. He's going to be like a part of every project or every band on the stage. So crazy.
That guy's like
And
the hardest working thrash dude, man.
yeah, I mean, I give the guy credit. He, he sticks to his guns and he's not ready to retire, not like Sepultura, but
Yeah.
I give Max all the credit for what he's doing.
Oh yeah.
And then for my spinning item, I'm going to be reviewing this for a new site that we're going to be a part of soon that we can't announce. But I've been listening to the new Bewitcher album, which is coming out September 27th. There's some really solid, like dark black and thrash, with a little bit of black metal thrown in. Pretty solid stuff. I love it. I was been listening to that for like all yesterday. Oh no, sorry, well, a couple of days ago actually when I started listening to it. But yeah, it's pretty solid stuff. So I'll have a review for that very shortly. But you can look it up. It's there. You can see some of their stuff on YouTube. Pretty solid stuff.
Nice.
Don't mind it. Don't mind it. All right, but that's all I have tonight for like spinning items and stuff like that. So what we'll do now, I guess, we'll just get into the whole meat of our topic, which is Evil Dead. So before we get into the band bio, I'm just going to start out with the questions first because I will just get to them because I don't think they'll take very long to discuss because it's not. To be honest, I know we had a discussion before we did the podcast about the questions, and Billy, you got a point. I mean, at the end of the day, there isn't really a lot of material to discuss with this band, really. But we'll start with the ones that I sort of rejigged, and then I'll bring them up, and you guys can comment on what you think. So like the first question I wanted to sort of ask was just about the guitarist Juan Garcia, who is like the integral member of the band. He started out in a band called Agent Steel, and then when John Cyrus mysteriously disappeared after the first album, they were left holding the bag. And of course, Juan went on to form Evil Dead. So just a quick question. Do you guys think that basically he should have stuck it out and found a new singer for Agent Steel? Or do you think it was a good idea just to start a new project? Jim, you're shaking your head, so we'll start with you first.
No way, man. Agent Steel is the band that could have been the band. You know what I mean? But like, no offense to I think I liked Abattoir better than Agent Steel, to be honest with you. Their first album in '85 was really good. John Cyrus, I've seen an interview on the Metal Voice a couple years ago or last year, I can't remember, and it was like 2 hours long. And he's a really interesting guy, but he's definitely a little bit out there, which I guess you have to be to put out some great stuff. And the Agent Steel albums were great. I mean, they are great, but I just don't think it has the longevity of, and it obviously doesn't. I mean, John's tried to revitalize Agent Steel. I mean, apparently he has a band ready to go, and he's touring, I think, in the fall. He's touring Europe for about 10 dates or something. But I mean, the dates for the festivals we're supposed to do this year, he canceled. So I don't know. I mean, is this going to happen? Is it not? Is there a new album? I just think, and I think with Juan, he made the right choice. I think go on to something else and let kind of sleeping dogs lie. I think he could have got another vocalist, but I think maybe the first Agent Steel albums were so good. I'm glad he went on to something else and just kind of left that behind.
Okay, that's cool. And what do you think, Billy? I'm assuming you're more of an Evil Dead fan as not so much Agent Steel.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like Evil Dead a little bit. I mean, I did like back in the day, like in the
Yeah.
80s, I remember listening to the first two Agent Steel albums, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so I know those albums. Um, yeah, I mean, and I think I don't know where in prep for this podcast, I had read that like Juan specifically wanted to start playing heavier, faster,
Yeah.
thrashier music,
Yeah.
especially more hardcore, a bit more hardcore. And so, you know, again, I don't claim to be an Agent Steel expert, but I know the sound of the first two
Yeah.
records, right? I don't know. I guess I'd call them speed metal with really
Mhm.
high register, like soaring vocals. So if that was their thing, they wanted to get into thrash. I mean, I don't know that that would have been the right project to still call it Agent Steel. So I guess that makes sense. And again, I don't know this Agent Steel vocalist,
Hmm.
John, but it sounds like he's quite the character. So
Yeah,
there
he's
may have
crazy.
been some interest in just separating, right? You keep the name, and I
Yeah.
think I had heard that he, you know, like he took the rights and he
Yeah.
is all kinds of crazy. So they may have known at that time, even though they went back to Agent Steel later, he may have been
Mhm.
thinking at the time, like, I'm not even going to keep going with this. Like,
Yeah.
fresh. So I don't know. I guess I think it was just tied to the music they wanted to play.
But you know what,
Makes
Billy?
sense.
You make a good point because I don't think Agent Steel had the marketing value that they would fight over it in litigation compared to and I hate bands that do this. Like just an example would be Riley's LA Guns and LA Guns. Like you've got two
Yeah.
Great White and then what's his face is Jack Russell's Great White. Like you have
Yeah.
Rad, Stephen Pearcy's Rad, and then Rad, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, you got these bands doing the same thing. And I mean, Queensryche did it for, I think, two albums. Jeff Tate still did a Queensryche album when they had Latora doing one at the same time. It's confusing. It's kind of silly. And you're fighting over, like, those are different situations because, like, LA Guns, Great White, even, and definitely Queensryche hit higher heights, and the names probably draw a lot more on a marquee compared to Agent Steel would. So I think him walking away, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Probably, let's start something new, and I'm glad he did.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with both you guys. I prefer Evil Dead too. I think what you were saying, Billy, just to piggyback off your point, though, from my understanding, Evil Dead was actually a side project from Mel Sanchez and Juan Garcia. So they pretty much had it in the background, and they did technically wanted to do like hardcore and thrash. So they're like, I guess, crossover is what they were thinking at the time. So maybe I guess it makes more sense when John just mysteriously disappears. No letters, no phone calls, just disappears. And they're like, what the fuck? So I can understand it. So I mean, I think at the time Evil Dead makes more sense.
Yeah,
But now to flip that to the other side, the one thing I find I'm obsessed with this because I find it very unique, maybe crazy at the same time, that Garcia then put Evil Dead on hold for a while to go back to Agent Steel
yeah,
with a new vocalist Bruce Hall, and then they released a bunch of new albums. And I was thinking,
free.
yeah, like it's strange, but do you guys think that was the right idea? You think they should have just kept on with Evil Dead? What do you think, Jim? I know you're shaking your head again. So
I think they should have kept on. I mean, the
yeah,
album we're about to discuss is a phenomenal.
yeah,
It's a building block of the thrash movement in my mind. So like, yeah, okay, Agent Steel came out, and like Billy said, that's just kind of a more. It was kind of I don't know, speed metal, not as good as Voivod kind of band. I know John Cyrus. He's a good vocalist. I mean, he was looked at to be the original Megadeth, one of the
that's right.
original
Yes,
Megadeth vocalists, and then Mustaine ended up just taking it on himself. But you know, I think that you went from. I think when did they get back together? It was in the early 2001, was it?
yeah, it was 2001. So they put
Yeah.
out like I think 3 albums.
So like you go from Annihilation in '89, the Underworld in '91 for Evil Dead, and then you don't put anything out till Anarchy in 20. So like, and you went back and did that. I think had they built up more of a foundation. I think Toxic Grace, which is an amazing album just released, I think that would have much more staying power. And I know you're going to get to the Ed Repka covers, but like that, I think is like they should have just kept going. By now, they would have, God, what is that? That's 19 years. They could have 8 albums, or 6 albums in between there, and really built up their catalog. And I think that would have been much smarter, because now, I mean, let's be honest, if John Cyrus does get to tour, he's not going to play anything off those albums, I don't think.
No. I would assume he wouldn't.
No, he's going to play off the first 2, and that's it, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Billy, what do you think? I'm assuming you would also have the same opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre, right? Because it goes against like, starting like Evildead in the first place. But
yeah,
I guess I was thinking about this and saying, if I put myself in his head, what maybe was he thinking at the end of the 90s? I mean, thrash wasn't doing well in the 90s.
True.
It wasn't a great time, right? I mean, some of the worst thrash albums by my favorite bands were in the late 90s. So like maybe he's sitting there saying, well, is this ever going to come back? Right? Like even their second album, like which came out in like Evildead in 91. I like it. But it actually didn't do nearly as well as the first one did, like in terms of sales. So he may be thinking, look, I was already on a downturn. Thrash is dying here in the 90s. Maybe he's thinking at least Agent Steel, like, that type of music was still popular in Europe. So maybe he's thinking he can sort of do the retro route and survive and make some money out of this band business. That's the only thing I can come up with, because otherwise, why go back to it? Like, it had to have been he didn't think the prospects for thrash were great at the time. I don't know. That's my best.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a very interesting person, but maybe he just felt it was a challenge to kind of revive that album or that group with a new singer. I mean, Bruce Hall actually is not a bad singer. I didn't mind. He's pretty decent, but yeah, I guess we'll never really know. I mean, it's when you think about it.
You know what? I think like if he was putting out an album every 2 years, I get it. It probably was maybe just paying the bills or would just pay the bills. I agree with Billy. Maybe there was a lot of unclarity. They maybe couldn't get it signed to a label at that point. I mean, we all know that a lot of metal bands were being dropped and forced to change what they were doing. But on the flip side to that, like Testament was still going strong, and these sort of little mini festivals everywhere. As you know, you had Testament, Overkill. We're always putting out stuff. So if you want to jump on, like I could see them being the first of a 3-bill or a 4-bill show and just kind of getting out there and just kind of scraping away at it like all the popular bands of the time. But I mean, yeah, Billy's right. I mean, Metallica, my favorite thrash band of all time, shit the bed in the 90s. So, like, let's be honest, what was going on? I'm sure everybody was looking to them for a little bit, kind of steering the ship. And they're like, okay, what's happening here? I mean, Testament put out a black metal album, in the middle of the 90s, and all that stuff. So I guess there might have been some, and at least with Agent Steel, the name was somewhat still, I mean, we're going back 20 some odd years. So maybe the name was still somewhat recognizable, especially in Europe, like he said. Now that's probably more feasible, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. So we know they put out 2 good albums. So I'll go back to Billy. So Billy, what do you think of like comparing those 2 albums to other bands like, Violence, Forbidden, Heathen, Defiance? Did you think they stacked up with those bands?
I mean, the album we're going to be talking about today is as good as a lot of those albums that you can almost even say that some of the first tier bands were putting out, but still in my eyes, I always sort of looked at Evildead as probably a third tier. Like I think it was partly due to the timing. right? Like they were a bit later, right? 89 still a prime year, but they were a little bit later. They just never seemed to be a band that toured heavy. They were based in the US, but they were always on like European record label. So I don't feel they ever did any major tours like through US. Like if you look at bands like Forbidden and Violence, they're doing like a fairly decent sized North American tours, and Evil Dead never really did. A smaller, more local band in terms of shows. So I think timing and just
Yeah.
limited output, like 2 albums before they took a huge break and went back to Agent Steel. So like they never really got going. They were a bit late and never really got going after the brilliant first album. So yeah, I think for me, they've always been like a lower tier band, not necessarily because of the quality of their music, just the limited output and the limited touring and things. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. And what about you, Jim?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, you think of the 90s, especially the early to mid 90s, the biggest tours that were going around was like Ozfest. And tours like that, the other one there that was always like the Blink 182 kind of bands. But Ozfest was kind of, I don't think they were necessarily doing a full service to the heavy metal movement at the time. I think this was more of a Sharon controlled situation. I mean, obviously Ozzy played on it, and I think Maiden did some and stuff like that. But when you think about it, you had bands like Crazy Town on there and Insane Clown Posse, ICP and just stuff that really didn't match up. Like even and I like Jane's Addiction, but I don't know, they shouldn't be really, in my mind, playing with Ozzy in that sort of. And I guess it was the sign of the times, and they wanted to go out on tour, so they wanted to bring a whole, you're selling a festival, so you want to make sure that you're covering all bases. I totally get that, but I think I think it would have been cool for Ozfest to focus a little bit more on bands like Forbidden and this and some of the thrash elements and maybe some of the death metal elements a little bit more than the mainstream kind of crap of the day, like a Crazy Town. Like, what the hell? Who the hell wants to go see Ozzy and see that? Like, no thanks.
True.
So I think they were left off, but Billy does make a good point that there was a lot of the mainstay bands still were touring through that time. I just think they got overlooked, and maybe it had to do with just the fact that they weren't putting out any material. But I guess you could say the same thing about Forbidden to some degree. So just the times, man. I wish we could have had a crystal ball and see that everything's going to kind of come around and go full circle, with metal as fast and furious once the 2000 hit again to now. Even, I mean, 24 years later from 2000, heavy metal is just alive and well and doing so good. But yeah, I consider them a third tier as well because their debut was in '89, strong thrash metal year. Same with '90, and you're getting into death metal and that. But I think they just couldn't get the solid foundation than if they would have came out in '85.
Yeah, like even the last 2 albums, right? Like one's new just recently, but then the previous one, what was that? 2020?
2020.
Yeah, 2020. Although maybe 2020 is a bad example because of the pandemic, right? But I was just going to say, but even this year, right? Like all the North American festivals that I went to, like even US festivals where they're based out of, like they were not on any of the lineups. Like I don't get it. Like what? Like how could there not be any connection with this band to any type of touring? Like this year they could have did like 70K Tons of Metal, which leaves out of the US, like Milwaukee Metal Fest, Hell's Heroes. Like, why are they? I just don't get why they're on no big like festivals or tours.
And you're right, because Forbidden's in Europe right now. Like you just saw them, Billy, and they're playing. I saw they were in Manchester last night, so they're doing a tour. Which is awesome. Chewy's there. And then you have Wacken, where you have Violence played and Hyrax playing. So like, why couldn't? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's, it's their loss. Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with that totally. There is a ton of opportunity out there.
Well, it could also be like maybe it's management. Maybe they don't have the correct management. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
You have to wonder about that. Like you just said, Billy. Like they should be touring. There's all kinds of
Yeah,
Yeah.
places to tour. So it's really odd. It's really odd.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't get it.
yeah, I don't either. I don't get it because I mean, they debut album is really good. I mean, I actually can compare it to our last week's episode for Violence. It's a very similar style with the
yeah,
punk, kind of the sort of New York punk vibes. And
totally.
then the lyrics are really kind of like very similar to Violence. There's a lot of dark lyrics on it. So I find it funny, but maybe it does come down to when they started, and maybe they didn't even have good management back then. It's because that
But
could really make a break
you
a
know
brand.
what though? Like Hyrax is playing. So what I love about Hyrax is here they played Vakken. You know, Billy saw them 2 weeks ago, and they put on a hell of a show. Now they're doing dates all through Europe, and they're touring
Mm.
with I think Exhumer, and I think that's really really cool. I mean, you know, we turn it into a package. You're going to be there for a couple of, you know, you're going to go all the way over there. Let's turn this
Mhm.
into, you know, I mean, Katon is smart, and I'm seeing so many positive reviews of the show, and they're blowing it away, and I think that's just so cool. And I mean, there's another band that had a huge, you know, the breakup, big
Came
gaps
back.
between albums and no re-releases and stuff like that. I'm, you know, and I think it comes down to, yeah, with them, like Billy said, it's or you said, Ken, it's probably management because the opportunity seems to be there.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I would think. Crazy. All
Yeah,
right, so the last question I had, and I'll take the lead on this one since it was what I wanted to talk about. So Ed Repka, of course, did the cover to the first album, and he also did their logo. So that's kind of I always like that logo quite a bit. And the
yeah,
cover, yeah, Billy's got it right there. Love that cover. That cover,
yeah.
it seems to be one of the favorites. I've noticed online a lot of people commenting on this album. They love the cover. So it's one of, I guess, a lot of people like that Repka cover that he did.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
even more so than than Rest in Peace, which is a classic, album. Sorry, not Rest in Peace, but I was actually going to say
Leprosy?
He felt.
no, Peace Sells.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Peace Sells. Yeah, Leprosy. I love his death covers.
Yeah,
They're
that's my
Yeah.
other favorite. Yeah,
yeah,
leprosy.
yeah, yeah. Spiritual Healing, Leprosy.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
covers are awesome. They're off the charts. I totally would agree with you guys. But I've just noticed online a lot of people were saying that they really loved they really liked the Civilization of Annihilation. Or sorry, Annihilation of Civilization. I said they got it backwards. So I think it was interesting. So what do you guys think, Billy? Do you like this cover at all, or does it work for you? Or
Yeah, no, I love the album cover, right? Like there's a lot of cool like nuances, but yeah, like you said, right down to the logos, like
yeah,
really
that logo.
like the annihilation of civilization, like the nuclear power plant is
Yeah,
there. Like right, they're getting all the nuclear reaction or whatever on the beach, and of course this became mandatory, right? Every crossover band had to have
yep,
Yeah.
like these like leaking cans of like waste, right?
Toxic
Like,
waste.
I
chemicals. Yeah,
mean, that becomes a standard. But yeah, I mean, I love this album cover. Like, it's so striking, not from like
Yeah.
a violent perspective where some
no,
men being like, or this is gross, like a cannibal corpse. It's really cool, memorable artwork, and yeah, it ranks right up there. Like, it's probably I don't know if it's my all-time favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorite for sure.
and the mascot's cool. He's like this
Yeah.
sort of. I know it's a play on like some kind of business professional person. He's a business. He's a suit who's probably undead because based on the eyes that there's no like the eyes are kind of like yeah it looks like he's a dead
Yeah.
business person. I think he has no name. I looked it up. I could never find. I don't think they've ever named their mascot, but he's kind of cool.
Mhm.
So Jim, what do you think of it?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I think Repka did the 3 covers, did he? Like he didn't do
Yes.
the last one, yeah.
Yeah.
But he did the first 3, and
He
you know
didn't do
what?
Toxic Grace.
No, and I think that it's awesome. I love it. I think that signifies to me just kind of the 50-year-old man that's supposedly running the world, and
Yeah.
that's what the stereotype is. I love it. I love the beach in that. It's so cool. Of this was done back in '89 when maybe they thought by now, and they're not far off, that the world would be like that. So like we're running into the heavy pollution. I think it's great. I love it. And interesting cover, interesting artwork, and the logo's wicked. That would rank probably in my top
Yeah.
five album covers of all times. I love it. And Ed Repka, I mean, I got a question for you, Ken. So does he have a book on his works? Because I saw the sketches for Leprosy. Like I saw his original sketches somewhere online, and it was really cool how he pre-laid it out before you actually drew it. Does he have like book where you can get all his artwork in
As
like
far as
one
I
spot?
know, he doesn't have a book like collecting all his work.
Okay.
I know like he does T-shirts.
Yeah.
I know you can buy like original illustrations of on T-shirts from him from his website, but I don't think he's ever actually put it. But if he had a book, I would have bought it. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's a book out currently. He should have one though. I don't see
Yeah.
why. Yeah, I would agree with you. A book would be great to see all the
And,
sketches.
and Billy, your album. That's an OG copy,
Yeah, he's
correct?
Yeah.
got
So
the
the other thing I was going to say, which is cool, because it
yeah,
actually splits open, right? Like it
yeah,
can,
yeah, yeah.
the back cover like fits in with the front cover, right? So
So good.
uh, it's really good. It's really cool. And
Yeah,
I think I was showing this before, the Morbid Angel, but or the Morbid Saint. I believe Ed Repka did this cover
yep,
as well,
Yep.
yep.
which is a really cool cover when you look at the detail closely.
Yeah, he's the king of thrash covers. There's
Oh yeah.
thrash, even death. I mean, he doesn't do a lot of death covers, death metal covers, but I mean, from the ones he's done, this guy, yeah, he's a master. He's so
Yeah.
great. He's so damn good. All right, so we'll get into our discussion here on the a band bio. So we've kind of been discussing it a little bit through the questions and all. So as I mentioned earlier, so this band was a side project at the start before it became a band. So Garcia and Sanchez had wanted to do like a sort of a crossover hardcore thrash band, and eventually they did form in 1987 in Los Angeles. So members of Agent Steel and Abattoir all came together to create this new band, which is pretty cool. Again, from what I can tell you, that the Evil Dead does come from the movie Sam Raimi's Evil Dead movie, which a splatter classic. So a lot of horror fans love that movie, and a lot of some of it's going to play into some of the songs when we get into the album, the song discussion. But it's great. I love the fact that they chose that as their name of their band. It's kind of unique.
And
They
Ken,
definitely have a yeah.
sorry, I was just gonna say, so the movie Evil Dead. So I'm not a big horror movie guy. Like, which one is that? The one with all the zombies, or is that the one with the guy with the chainsaw on his arm?
It's both. It's both. Yeah,
Neither.
he's yeah. It's basically he has the Book of the Dead, and he uses it to revive creatures from some dimensional hell portal.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, he does have the
The
chainsaw
chains.
on
Okay,
his.
I think I know what it is. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. They're fun. They're fun movies. They've been around for a long time. Um, so
Okay.
it's kind of that they took their name directly from the movies. Pretty unique. They do have like a very kind of crossover punk vibe. So on the first album we're talking about, it's definitely there. They did release an EP called Rise Above in '89, and then the album came out the same year. And then in 1991 they released The Underworld. So and then they called it quits in '95, which is baffling, as we were discussing earlier. So that's a little bit of a bit about Evil Dead. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll get into the discussion of the other songs. And the first song I think is probably one of my favorite songs. So I'm going to take the lead on this one because it's directly taken from the Evil Dead. Um, the first song, which they do here, FCI/The Awakening. Now I was looking up FCI, and one person suggested Forest Curse Incantation, which I think is, I'm not sure if that's it. That's what I've heard somebody interpret it as. I couldn't really find anything official from the band on why they started out with FCI, but a lot of that plays into this for a song because basically the whole song is an ode to Evil Dead, you know, because they're talking about the ancient slaughter, the book, all the evil forest, everything that comes out in the forest. It's all there. Well, these great punk vibes. I really love it. I love the fact that it opens with a reference from the Evil Dead, and you get this kind of like, you know, we've arrived, we're alive, you must die kind of thing. So that's taken from a scene where Ash reads the book and all people start turning into like weird zombies and possessed. It's really out there, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah, this is a really good song. A lot of punk vibes for me on this one. I really like this opening song. It's got some really good riffs on it. Phil's vocals are a little rough around the edges. He's not quite. I wouldn't say he's in the range of Sean Killian, although it's similar at times. There's a great 1-2 punch with Gonzalez, Albert Gonzalez, and Juan Garcia on the guitars. It's so great. These two trade off really well. So what do you think of the song, Jim?
Oh, I like it. I wrote. I didn't know it was because I like you. Unlike you, I've seen the Evil Dead, but I don't know it like you do. But I thought it had a cool satanic vampire intro, so I knew it was horror related.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I didn't know it was from the movie. So, but that makes total sense. I like when it kind of, man, the guitar chugs on this album are phenomenal, and it cuts into a wicked after the sort of the spooky intro. It breaks into that guitar thing, and there's a 1 minute. Then after 1 minute, the song just kind of explodes and speeds up. I think it's got kind of the vocals are definitely reminiscent for me of a DRI, but I'm going to use a lot throughout this album of Anthrax, even suicidal tendency sounds to me. But this has kind of a beneath the wheels from DRI kind of groove to it. One hell of a fast track, and a 220, those guitars that just trade off, like you say, phenomenal. And I really, really like that. That's why, like, there's on this album, there's not a bad song on this album for me. And I mean, this album is just an absolute killer album, and it starts off on such a good, a great footing. You just go up from here.
Absolutely. And Billy, what do you think of the song?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think you guys hit on like a lot of the main points. Like for me, this band is really about the riffs, right? Like they do a good job of like crossover. Like Jim, I have DRI marked for a few of these, but they really do a good job of like like moshable riffs, if you want to call it that, right? That's to get you excited. Like I always find the lead work is good, but it's very brief in the songs, right? Like even the longer songs, right? Like they never really do like any lengthy leads. They're fairly quick.
No.
So again, not a bad thing, but for me, it really is all about the riffs. But and so every band you said, Jim, I agree. I have them written down throughout the others. But there's one band and one album, and it's one of my all-time favorite albums. So I know it inside out, and the vocal delivery and the riffs. Styling is so much like Sacred Reich's Ignorance.
Yeah.
That first album, like the amount of times I listened, because I was prepping for the podcast, and so I played the album, and I just picked up the vinyl like a few weeks ago. I finally got it, so I've been listening to it a fair amount. And I can't believe how much the riffing style reminds me of Ignorance. And then the other thing would be the vocal delivery. Like almost half the time, Phil is singing like Phil, but Phil Ryan. Very similar style, right? Like now that you guys have listened to this, like as a refresher, go back tomorrow and listen to Ignorance. There are so many similarities, right? And Ignorance is a more punk, more rough.
Exactly.
Certainly, the American way is not going to sound like this.
No,
But
no, no, no.
ignorance, yes. Like I kept pulling reference, like I
Hmm.
was stunned, like at how many things sounded like ignorance. So that'll be a comment that applies to many of the tracks.
Okay.
But it's
I
not a
never.
bad thing, like because that's like
No.
one of my all-time favorite albums is Ignorance. So like that's one of the reasons I love this album.
It's funny that didn't occur to me, but I'll definitely
Me either.
Hmm.
tomorrow I'll go back and listen to that and just to compare. But yeah, that's cool. I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of comparisons you can make for
Yeah.
this band. So we'll go to track two, Annihilation of Civilization, the title track. This is the first and only single from the album. It did get a lot of airplay on MTV. So Jim, what do you think of it?
God, this is a killer thrash song. I mean, it's got. I love the vocals. I mean, the vocal ability is just from Phil is like you've got these kind of clean but heavy vocals. They're not. I don't know how to describe. Well, I describe it like that. I guess it's clean but heavy vocals. So maybe thick vocals, but not down tuned or anything like that, or not that you can like not death metal vocals, but just really cool. The riffs in this song are just galloping, and at
Yeah,
the 145 mark, I find there's the chugging vocals, and I find they've got Anthrax gang vocals on this, like in the
yeah,
chorus for like Annihilation. It's almost kind of, and the heavy drums. This is a really good drum track. But I I don't know. It's just so reminiscent of Anthrax for me.
yeah.
But it's one of my favorites. I got a one beside it, but I'm going to be honest with you. On my notes, I got a one beside almost all of them. So, but this is just such a great second track. And again, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's got some parts of his vocal range. I think more along the lines of the gang vocals sound more like Anthrax for me,
Yeah.
and not necessarily Joey, but by himself. But maybe the fact of the band singing it kind of sounds like Anthrax, the band singing it, and that's Billy brought that up when we were doing the Anthrax album. That sometimes you find the band stepped in to kind of thicken it up a bit, and maybe that's where I'm getting. But he's such a talented vocalist. This is an awesome song. So
Yeah, I see the Anthrax comparisons. I would agree. The gang show where it's like speculation, annihilation,
Annihilation, yeah,
civilized nation, termination. Yeah, that's great. That's all kind of like got a really punky kind of
yeah.
shouty vibe. So I could see what you're saying there. But what do you think about the song though, Billy? Do you see any Anthrax comparisons? I know you're not an Anthrax fan, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so many things that I had written down. Jim, like I even had like excellent thrash gallop. Like he said, like galloping thrash riffs, right? Like I had like strong chorus, with like good backing vocals, kind of East Coast thrash style.
Mm.
Yeah,
So yeah, so he kind of hit on that. But yeah, again, for me, it's so much about the riffs. Like they're so memorable on this song. This might be my favorite song on the album, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think it's quite good. And again, it's those, for lack of a better word, like that only crossover could do, right? Like that moshing kind of,
Mhm.
makes you want to like do circles in your living room, right? Like it's so cool. Yeah, no, it's a great. Again, my only complaint is I wish there were more extended solos. We actually get something a little better here, a longer solo
Yeah,
on this song, but it's also like a minute longer, so that kind of makes sense.
yeah,
But
yeah.
again, that's not a complaint, more so an observation. Because again, this is all about the riffs, not like tinkering on like 2 minute leads, guitar leads. So, yeah, like I love it. It's a great one.
Yeah, so Gonzalez does the first solo, and then Garcia does the second solo. So they're obviously just trading off back and forth in each of the songs, and
Yeah.
you can tell that they work well together as like a team. Sort of not too far off from what we heard last week with Rob Flynn and Phil Demmel. Very
Mm.
similar play on the music. Yeah, this is a good song too. I love the one thing I was saying earlier, comparing it to Violence, is because of the lyrics. And here they want to discuss the whole idea of societal collapse, then this environmental destruction, and then they go into heavily about criticizing religion and politics, and they're saying that it's the downfall of civilization. So I like it for that reason. I think it's the kind of song that Anthrax would write. They would write something similar. So I can see the comparisons. Did you guys also notice that the opening riff or the opening couple, just a few minutes of it, is almost very Maiden, very kind of
Yeah.
Iron Maiden kind of. There's a bit of that kind of a harmonic gallop there at the start. I thought that was actually kind of unique. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So the one thing I'm noticing on the songs is they throw that in every so often. You get that weird kind of like galloping, kind of flourishing riff. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I think I agree with Billy. I think there should be more of it. It's like interspersed throughout the songs. I just wish there was more of it, to be honest. You got that in Violence, I think, a bit more. I think they were better at
A little bit more, yeah.
yeah, pulling that together for their sound. But oh well. All right, so we'll go to track 3, Living Good. And Billy, why don't you start us off with this one?
Yeah, no, this is another good one. Like the next two are longer, so they
Yeah.
have some they can mix things up
Mm.
a little bit more. But yeah, this opens with another cool, like kind of menacing like riff. I find that pretty memorable. This one's a heavy on the drums. At some points it gets pretty damn heavy, right? And thick wall of sound here. Kind of interesting because we actually get a guitar solo before the vocals even kick in.
That's right.
Right. So kind of, I think, the vocals are not even kicking in till at least past the first minute for sure. There's an amazing time change just past the 1 minute mark where everything kind of shifts. That's really cool. Like I really get one of the most crossover feels on the vocals on this track. They do a pretty good job of alternating, this thick, like heavy guitar chug and more faster paced riffing in the song. This is of the first three, I think the best guitar leads. Like there's a real good one at 3:15, another one at 40. And for me, kind of that I've sort of jotted down like a stomping Anthrax mosh at the end of the song. Is what kind of comes to my mind as the song kind of closes out. So yeah, I think it's good. I mean, there's no song I don't like on the album. So
Okay. Yeah. I just gotta point out though the 3:13 mark, the drums there, when they really kick in before you get to that solo. I think that's like because you get that little section of harmony going on there, then it gets into the super chug in the solo.
yeah.
But that's such a great song. It's a really good song. What do you think of the song though, Jim?
Oh, I think it's funny. We all have, you had 3:13, Billy had 3:15, I had 3:14. Cool drum and bass kind of solo that kicks in. I mean, yeah, everything you guys said. This is awesome. This is one of my favorite songs. I mean, this song finishes with that sort of classic thrash guitar chug. But what I like about it is, like Billy said, it's kind of has that moshing sound where from Anthrax, where it just keeps speeding up till it finishes. Like it just, you don't know, like it's gonna keep going faster, and I love that. But yeah, everything you guys said. I mean, the start of this is wicked. When those thumping drums cut in right at the start, and I got like just around 112, 113, the vocals cut in. This is a solid thrash song and one of the best ones on the album. I like it, and I find it goes. This one would be more like a Violence track for me because it's got a little bit more directional changes than the first two. Yeah. But wicked track. Love this song.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that like with the lyrics, they start to attack a person, religious leaders trying to make money from, being whatever denomination you're from. And so it's all about being hypocritical and being greedy and wanting money. So I think that's kind of cool. Again, it's a trope for a lot of these thrash bands. It's the kind of lyrics that everyone was sort of tackling like in the late 80s, either war or religion, the two biggest ones, which is funny. So we'll go to track 4, Future Shock, which I was reading online. A lot of people really, really love this track.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jim?
Oh, this has got a massive early suicidal tendencies vibe for me. It's weird. When I listen to it, I think this song could easily be off of like, he's got kind of a Mike Muir sound to his vocals on this, but it's got kind of the musically, it doesn't have the groove of I Saw Your Mommy, but it's from that era. And that's the first thing I thought about when I'm hearing this. But this could have been right off of even as late as How Can I Laugh Tomorrow, which is my favorite Suicidal Tendencies album of all time. But it starts off with that wicked drum, the guitar riff intro. It's got another great chug to it, super heavy. I love the gang shouts in this as well. And at around 2:45, it turns into that double bass drum attack. Yep. And it's got kind of, I don't know what you'd call the outro on it, but the guitars on it start kind of dueling as more of a distortion kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I kind of like that. They didn't do this in the first 3 songs. So it's great that they're doing something different. And this is another great track.
Yeah, Juan Garcia has the last solo at the end, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of unique. And Gonzalez does the first solo. So they're just going to continue to trade off on every song, like with the lead and the solo, which is great, which makes it pretty unique. A good sound. What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, no, I like this one as well. It's a little different versus the first 3, more so slightly slower pace. I find the riffing even a little more technical on it. There's some interesting riffs that show up on this. But, as Jim said, like a good thrash groove on this track. Like I definitely get suicidal here as well, as he said. Like, the chorus and backing vocals, I can hear some Anthrax style in there as well. But yeah, again, like I think I'm a few seconds off, Jim, but like at 250, like it really picks up, and the crunching guitar, some good lead work there at 315 and 445. I also still like that ignorant Sacred Right comparison comes in at times, but like I'm gonna sound like a broken record there. But yeah, and then I always found the ending a bit odd. Like I think Jim mentioned it, but the song kind of gets to the point where you think it's over. But then you kind of get these effects. Like, is it wind maybe that I hear? I don't know. Like there's like an effect noise. It sounds like wind in my headphones. And then, as you guys said, the guitar and drums come back in and finally close out the track. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, another good solid one for sure.
Yeah, I like how the vocals kind of trade off with the riff. Mm-hmm. So it's great. And I think, the suicidal comparisons definitely at the beginning, because it's really catchy, it's chuggy and catchy, and it kind of works. It's sort of a unique kind of mix here on this track. So it's a little bit different from the first three tracks. I also like the lyrics, because I like the whole kind of the horror of the beast, 10 horns from the east, hail from the skies, cracking the earth. I just love that. It's that the whole section is so great. And obviously, again, it's a trope for me when lyrics get pessimistic about the idea of humanity and how humanity is going to collapse. It seems to be the doom and gloom with a lot of thrash bands at the time. But this is a really good song as well. I have no issues with the song either, and I'm noticing everyone online feels the same. It's one of the ones that people seem to focus on this album. So we'll go to track 5. Track 5, basically, I guess would be side B if you're on a vinyl version or looking at your vinyl. Holy Trials. What do you think of it, Billy?
Yeah, I think it's another good song. It's a different like in terms of its pacing, right? They almost get like ballad like a little bit, which is odd for this band. But yeah, it starts out very slow, like almost ballad like pace. And I don't know, like is there another movie thing in there, Ken? Like, like towards the beginning of this, there's like talking or something, like a clip in there. Like I don't know what that is. Like, is that a movie thing or?
I couldn't find that out. I'm assuming it's taken from something. It's a sample of something, but I may The
I
whole
don't know.
song's about the
Evangelist.
idea of the Inquisition and the witch trials. So
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm assuming they took it from somewhere. I don't know,
Yeah. Okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah, that's at the beginning of the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
At
you
the
like that?
beginning.
Do you like that gothic opening though? Because I kind of
yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah. But then, of course, the song totally picks up into like a furious, like thrash pace, which is cool. Yeah, I mean, just some really addictive riffs on this track. Like, I like the vocals. I think it's some of the stronger vocals. Goes back to the slower guitar briefly again towards the end. Yeah, I think it's good, right? Like it's good songwriting, right? They mix it up, and kind of track four is a little different in its
Hmm.
speed, and then this is a little different, like in its bringing in the even slower parts, and so yeah, I think it's just a good songwriting for this song.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with you. And Jim, what are your thoughts on this song?
Yeah, it's real. I love it. I mean, it's got that slower intro, and then I didn't know what that was either. The kind of I thought it was like a priest talking or something. I couldn't tell, but I love that
Mhm.
gothic intro. And the sort of the acoustic with the whisper that breaks in, and then 48 seconds roughly, and the guitars cut in. It's got that smoking guitar riff right after that, and about 3:28 it speeds up and it's got kind of a suicidal vibe for me again. And then around 3:28, 3:30, it goes back to a bit of that acoustic. But it's a
Yeah,
really heavy song. But what's really neat is this song and Future Shock are exactly 5 minutes and 39 seconds each. So that's kind of neat. And the song before that, Living Good, was 5:33. So wow. Like they're really nailing their times here,
yeah,
but it's a great song. It's pretty cool, and it's got more of a. I guess if you're going to say more of a on a thrash album like this, there would be no doom, but this would be the closest thing to a doom track if they were to
yeah.
label that. Yeah,
I could see that.
yeah,
That's fair to say. I mean, it's nice to get a little bit of a change up
oh
halfway
yeah,
through, and then you get something a little bit different. So
yep,
it's not all just aggression and speed and punky shouts. At least it's got a little bit more going on there.
yeah.
So we'll go to track 6. Now I'm gonna tee this up because I think this is funny. Like basically just picture the idea of living in LA, you're angry, you're pissed off, you don't like you're overwhelmed by the feeling of, the chaoses of the city. And then what do? You get a gun, you hop into your car and you drive on the freeway and you just go insane. And that's pretty much the lyrics to this song. It's funny. I don't think it's meant to be tongue in cheek, but I kind of compare this to what we were talking about last week on violence, where they were doing the same thing with like calling the coroner. It's kind of a cool song. Billy, what do you think of it?
Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, I mean, to your point, like you get the loud car crash effect
Yeah.
at the open. So this really has a big crossover feel for me, and I definitely get suicidal here, like Mike Muir in the vocals for sure.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, just the riffs like really build momentum in the song. Like it's really like I really enjoy this. And speaking of the longer lead breaks. This
Mhm.
probably has the longest leads on the album, so that kind of makes me happy. The really cool chorus again, very memorable. You got the
Mhm.
gang vocals again. Like this is really like a crossover by the numbers,
Yeah.
and then it has just like a really good like thrash groove towards the end, and that quick like start stop riffing. Like another great song. Yeah, unfortunately, we're coming to an end of the album, but
I know.
it's all the tracks are good.
Okay, and Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, well, two things. I mean, everything you guys said about the music and the vocals part of it, totally agree. Great, great track. I thought this could be a soundtrack for maybe Grand Theft Auto, but on the flip
Matt?
side, I thought this was maybe there was a serial killer. I don't know if you call it a serial killer. I guess so. The guy that was driving a car and had another guy laying down in the back of it, shooting through his taillight. I don't know
Okay,
somewhere. I don't know if it was in L.A. or if it was somewhere in the U.S. And they
okay,
couldn't figure out for the longest time because they were looking. Obviously, they couldn't figure out where the shots were coming from. They found out the
right.
guy. There was a young guy and I think it might have been LA, I could be wrong, but he was laying down in the trunk, had a gun, and he was pinging people off through the back part of his old car, and nobody could
Wow.
tell. They finally caught him. I don't know how many people he killed or injured, but anyways, that's where I kind of got this from. And I
Okay.
tried to, my wife is into all this true crime stuff. I tried to find out from her, but I couldn't validate it. It could be a movie too. I could be living in, I don't know, in some sort of dream world here, but I thought that's where I got kind of the feeling of the song from. But yeah, as a thrash song, it's phenomenal, total crossover, and yeah, suicidal for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of good moshing. This is like a
Yeah.
really good mosh song. I think I could see people going crazy in the pit
Oh
to
yeah.
this kind of a song. I think it's fun. It's maybe a little tongue in cheek with the lyrics, but you can't go wrong with the song at all.
It also has a really cool guitar slide in it that
Yep.
you're starting to hear in the back end of the album here, because I know the next song has that too. But that's really cool. It just turns that into a real crossover sound.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. You're going to get that on the next track though too as well.
Yes.
Parasite, which I think might be the strongest, the speediest fast thrash song they have. I love this song. What do you think, Jim?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is fast flowing and it builds up, and it's got that guitar slide riff to start off with, so it's almost like a continuation. And then you got a minute and a half roughly till the vocals cut in. And it's kind of shouty vocals, but very clear and very clean.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool. It's got a wicked guitar groove. At 2:27 roughly, the song just speeds up, breaks into that wicked chug that we've heard in the first part of the album. I think this, for me, probably is maybe my one or two top guitar tracks on the album. I love it.
Yeah, I could see that. I
Yeah.
noted the 245 for me. That's where the speedy
Hmm.
hardcore chug like a locomotive, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't stop, and it's so
Nope.
great. I think it's like the best part of the song for me.
Yeah.
What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, kind of the same thing I've got there, right? But like for me, even like at the beginning, like you kind of get like a bit of a funky intro, which is kind of suicidal like as well. But yeah, then the song just like doubles in its pace and just like really shreds. So yeah, that's really cool. This definitely has like a punk influence for me.
Yeah,
You actually even get like one or two almost death metal like growls out of the vocals, right? Like I don't know if it just never stuck out in the other songs, but for some reason I noticed that here. It's a pretty good drumming track also. And same story, right? The riffs are just killer. I'm gonna say it's my second favorite on the album actually.
Okay, that's cool. I would agree. It's a great song. I mean, just the chug, it doesn't stop. And then they go back to their lyrics about like it's really nasty. Like they're talking about the idea of abuse and how somebody who's been abused will eventually turn to committing a violent act against their family. So I don't know if it's like trying to talk about like pedophilia or rape or incest, but yeah, it's pretty heavy shit. And it works. It works for the song. So I think we're all in agreement here that it's a punk, nasty vocals and just a great track overall. So we'll go to track 8. Now I know there's 8 tracks on the vinyl and there's 9 on the CD, but we'll talk about both anyways. So track 8 would be the official ending of the album if you bought the vinyl. Unauthorized exploitation. And what do you think of it, Billy?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great way to end the album. I mean, Jim kind of said it before, but I hear it here, like the DRI beneath the field type thing. This is where I hear it on this song, right? Like it's and it's got the riff hooks all over the place. This is really a great like crossover song. Like vocally, I definitely get some Mike Muir in here as well, influence and same thing. Do you guys know like it's like the intro is like a TV show or someone like talking?
RoboCop.
What is that RoboCop?
RoboCop.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jim. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering
Okay.
that too.
I didn't know
Yeah,
what that was. Okay. Yeah, it's a fantastic song. Like I love it. It's a great ending track.
yeah, because like the whole song is about a friendly merchant who's actually deceptive and greedy, and tries to sell people items that aren't worth the price that he's selling them for. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, the opening, yeah, I believe Jim's right. It is RoboCop. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
he's got that right. But Jim, so you mentioned it. What do you think of the song beyond the beginning with it?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's got those fierce vocals, and the RoboCop intro is from the commercial played in RoboCop from
Ah,
the old guy with the two girls, and he's, I'd buy
oh,
that
I
for
buy
a
that for
dollar.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't
So
realize that. Okay.
as soon as I heard it, I was like, that's RoboCop. And I mean, I love the first RoboCop movie. The other ones kind of suck, but
Mm.
that was wicked, and it was hilarious. So you talking about it being exploitation in the
The lyrics,
for
yeah.
business, that would make sense because you remember during the RoboCop movies, to set the setting that it was in the future and
Right.
everybody was corrupt, including the police department. They
That's
had the
right.
commercials were very violent, like, you know,
Yeah.
the dog that could shoot something, and
And the
it was all
battleship
about, yeah, home
playing the
defense
game.
and stuff. Yeah, yeah. It was like, it was just like they're trying to really set it that, boy, times have changed and everything's gone downhill. And then they had this old guy on there. I don't even know what he was advertising. I can't remember, but it would be his like catchphrase, and they'd be shooting somebody, and you'd hear, "I'd buy that for a dollar," and it was
I
hilarious.
think it's
So
a play on Groucho Marx
yeah,
because he sort of looks like Groucho
he
Marx.
does. Yeah,
And I know, great, like Groucho was the last of the brothers who was alive. He did a lot of those kind of, I guess, stand-up comedy acting in the '70s and variety shows. So I think that's where it's a play from. At least that's what I interpreted. But
yeah, and also I got like the DRI. Billy's right. I also got an Indians vibe from Anthrax on it. I don't know. It just kind of like reminded me of that track, and but yeah, what a way to end off the album. I mean, on another high, and it's just really cool. And I like their intros they do, where they included,
yeah,
like you said, the Evil Dead, and then they had that sort of, maybe it was a priest or something with the witch trials. I thought that was kind of cool, and then to do that was pretty neat too. It's kind of cool when they throw something so obscure from a movie. As soon as I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, cool. At first, I was like, really? Why would that be on there? But anyways, it was pretty neat. No, I love this. I like this track as well, and a great ending track to the album.
yeah, absolutely. So we know on the CD version they did put the last song, which is BOHICA. The acronym is Bend Over Here, It Comes Again, which is kind of an offensive song because it's about anal sex, basically. It's I don't know what the point of it is. I don't know what they were trying to do. What do you think of this, Billy?
Yeah, I mean, so like I grew up without this song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So yeah, so like I only just get because I sent you a note, Ken, saying like what
you
version
did.
are we doing? Because there's also a re-release on CD where they
Yeah,
Yeah.
have another three tracks on top of
Rise Above.
mine, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I listened to this track, like I don't know, like it's like it almost sounded live to me, almost like as I
Mhm.
listened because I only listened to it once or twice. So but it's like super fast. Like it felt more raw
Yeah.
versus the other track. So it's like it was a bonus or a left out maybe. And yeah, like this really sounds like old demo Sacred Reich.
Mm.
In my opinion, but yeah, so I don't really have a big view of it. I had no idea what lyrically it's about, but and
Oh, I do.
it's less than 2 minutes, so I don't know. Like, I don't think it adds anything, right? So I have no problem with it not being on the initial version.
Yeah, yeah. It's basic about anal sex. If you read the lyrics, you can figure it out pretty quickly what they're trying to say. Um, what do you think, though, Jim?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I mean, it to me, I grew up without it, but
Hmm.
I think that the Rise Above the Black Flag cover from, I think, the 2004 re-release is actually not bad. That's a pretty good cover.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're kind of a pseudo, they're a crossover band anyway. So to do a cover from a punk band like that is pretty neat. But yeah, it doesn't really. I don't know. I don't really have much to say other than it's a, I guess it'd be a bonus on the CD version. I would assume the cassette and the CD version would have came later probably than 89, I would say, or maybe it was available then. I don't know. Usually back in even in 89, a lot of them were being released on just album and cassette at that point. Maybe, I don't know, but I wasn't on my copy, and I've heard it digitally, and that's about all. So yeah, it doesn't really do much. It sounds a bit rough around the edges and more like a demo than anything.
Yeah, I have it on my CD version, but I'm not quite sure if this is from, it's 89 they're saying, but I'm not too sure. But
Yeah. I think it could be. I mean, CDs were being produced in the late 80s, so maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, because it's on mine. It's on my version.
Yeah.
So I knew the song. I know when when we were talking before, about getting the podcast going, Billy was mentioning, well, we were doing that song. I'm like, well, technically no, because I mean the vinyl version doesn't have it, but it's interesting. I wouldn't want this as my end song either,
No.
even though that it's fast and punky and
Yeah.
it does have that Sacred Reich vibe, but I wouldn't want it as my ending. I prefer to end off on unauthorized exploitation, personally.
Yeah, it just feels like a bonus track to me. Like a
Yeah,
little,
yeah, you're right. You're right. And it does have that demo. It does like have a demo feel to it. So it's very raw, but all right. So that's the album. So I'm glad we were able to discuss this one because it's an interesting, unique album and a nice play off of what we did last week with Violence, because there are some similarities between the two bands. Does anyone have any thoughts about the albums or further thoughts?
Oh, it's a great album. I mean, I think this is a talented band. I think should be a lot bigger than what they are, but I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that they just didn't release a lot of material and kind of went back to do some of the Agent Steel stuff, and I think it hurt them more in the end than it would have benefited them. Just my thought.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd say is don't sleep. We talked, obviously this being the first, we mentioned the second, but we did the comeback album show, and I featured these guys, right? Like in 2020 when they came.
Did, yes.
Yeah, like don't sleep on that album. Like that's worth getting as well. And I know some people don't like it, but I'm enjoying the new album that just came out as well. So yeah, like check out the later stuff too.
Yeah, that's funny. I was just going to bring that up about the Toxic Grace album because it's very some people like it, some people don't. I'm getting a lot of people say they don't like Phil's vocals on it. I don't mind his vocals, but some people are saying he's kind of phoned it in. He sounds lazy and uninspired. I didn't get that. Did you guys get that on it? Because I didn't feel that.
Like I like it. So yeah. I'm still waiting for my bloody vinyl to arrive, like ever since it was released. But like that one's being shipped right over from Germany. You'll never find that distributed here in Canada. But I've been listening to it on streaming. I think it's very good.
Same with me.
Yeah, and they've been on Steam Hammer for a long time. So I mean,
yeah,
solely like a European label. So it's just too bad that they don't get any like push here in America or in Canada because it's they are still a good band as far as I'm concerned. Like four albums in, they're still pretty solid, even though there's a break in between the first two the two modern albums. But because that Anarchy album is awesome. I love that album. When I heard it when it came out, I was like, wow, this is great. They sounded like revitalized and refreshed.
Well, I think it's a good sign that 2020 and 2024 they got an album each time. Yeah. So like that might be some momentum going into maybe 2 years from now. There'll be another one. I rather than like bands that seem to want to test the waters, try one, and maybe they just don't feel that they're getting the push on it. They must have got some favorable response from it. So.
But I agree with Billy. I think they should tour. They need to get out there and tour. Get out there, tour. Get people know that you're still a band and you're still here playing.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. But all right. So that's pretty much the album in a nutshell. I didn't mention this at the top of the podcast, but we did come up with a top 10 ranking, and we decided to do band members of bands who were in a thrash band and then left to go to start their own band. Now, Billy also mentioned that there may not be a good top 10 of material to do. So we open it up to not just thrash, but metal, death, whatever. So the whole kind of theme is a member or members who left one band to start another band. And we thought we'd do a top 10 on that. So, Billy, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, no, and not that I didn't think it'd be a good show. I just couldn't come up with 10
Yeah.
because it's a top 10. So it's
Mhm.
the stuff I like. So like I could come up with 10 examples, right? Like, we talked about it. I think it came up, or maybe this was before we started going live, but like
Yeah.
take Max Cavalera. Like he left Sepultura and then formed like Nail Bomb and did what was the other
Soulfly.
Soulfly.
yeah.
Have a
And I wasn't a big fan of those projects, right? So I kept running into things, or you could have taken Celtic Frost, right? And then the singer forming like his other band. Like again, it's not bad, but it's not my favorite. So
Mhm.
I requested to go broader.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
fine.
so yeah, so and mine's not in any order. Some are thrash though, but
Sure.
um, for me, one of my favorite examples is Kai Hansen. So leaving
Mm.
Halloween right at the peak, but then going to do Gamma Ray.
Good one. Good
And
one.
I love Gamma Ray. Like
Yeah, me
looking at a
too.
whole body of work, I actually prefer Gamma Ray over Halloween.
Yep.
Maybe not just looking at one album, but and then Kai, of course, didn't sing at the beginning. It was Ralph Sheepers from Primal Fear who does Primal Fear now. But then Kai took over the vocals, and I probably preferred when he was on vocals. So that's kind of number one. Again, not in order. Number two would be, I guess, Zetro from Exodus going on
Mm.
to sing with his sons over in Hatriot. Like he
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
last
Good
there.
one.
Yeah, he didn't last there permanently. Like the band still exists, the band's still touring. Like there's another band, right? Like talk about what we were saying. Like Hatriot, I've seen like in Toronto at the end of last year and at three different festivals this year, right? And that's like, I mean, if you were going to say Sea Level was live, Evil Dead, you'd have to say Hatriot's probably, they're so new, like they'd be a D level band and they're touring like crazy. So, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that was good and very traditional thrash. So, but good stuff. I liked it. The album Heroes of Origin in
Hmm.
2013. Then I'm going with a band I mentioned that I saw at Bloodstock, progressive metal band Soen, which is one of my favorite bands. I mean, it's not thrash; it's Swedish prog metal, I guess is the way I would call them. But they really do a good job of mixing melody and intricate musical passages, but still can shred as well for sure. There's actually a Canadian guitar player in there now, but yeah, I mean, it was started by Opeth drummer Martin Lopez, and actually Steve DiGiorgio was originally a member as
Oh,
well.
cool.
Started. So it's the top musicians. They've all played in other bands around the world, but six albums in and still going strong. So I'm a big fan there. Then here's some guy nobody will know, Jason Newsted. Uh, Obviously left Metallica with all the drama around him wanting to do Echo Brain, and so we all know what happened there. Of course, he was in Voivod, but I'm going with his band Newsted,
Yeah.
which all they got was an EP and one album, which heavy metal music, uh,
Yep.
which is pretty self-descriptive. But sadly, they really didn't last, right? Like there was just nothing. They kind of went dead. I know Jason kind of said they just financially couldn't make it. Like he was bleeding on that band, so that kind of went under. Uh,
Although Bill, he did say that he is reviving the project again.
yeah,
He did announce, like, I think not that long ago that he's going to revive the project. So
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
yeah.
Um, Another case wasn't necessarily my favorite band, but the two musicians who formed it were two of my two people I really looked up to. So Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell, after
Mm,
Pantera ended, went on to form Damage Plan. Uh,
yeah.
and of course, all the history there, right? We know on that terrible day in 2004 in December during their live performance, some crazy I won't even call him a fan. They call him a fan, but unfortunately shot Dimebag and killed him on the stage. So just so much like to that band, but yeah, I wanted to kind of get that in there because I'm a
Cool.
big fan of those two musicians. One thing, a cool sort of piece of memorabilia. I always have trouble saying that word, like memorabilia. Like somebody help me out. Uh,
You got it. You got it.
just before Vinny died, he actually was trying to raise money for an auction.
Okay.
So he actually sold one of his custom whole entire drums
Wow.
that he signed and did everything on it. And I actually won that auction. So that's kind of one of my prized possessions, probably one of the last pieces that Vinny ever would have signed and had out there. So that's something I really love. So yeah, keep going here. This one's an obvious one. It's a big band. Rob Halford leaving Judas Priest.
Mm,
So, like
Like,
I know nowadays people said that Rob really wanted, excuse me, really wanted to do these as side projects, but I don't know if it was apparently the record company didn't want him to. But anyways, he was gone out of Priest for like 10, 15 years, or 15 years between his last album and the album he came back to. But yeah, I mean, two bands. Like I really liked his Halford band, especially the Resurrection album. I thought that was pretty good. Then of course he did Fight as well, two or three albums on that front.
okay.
Uh, so that's probably an obvious one. Uh,
We'll come back. We'll come back to what that with mine, and I have
okay.
something.
Okay. Another big one for me is Worrell Dane. I mentioned him being one of my favorite. I guess I never really considered either of these bands thrash, but they can definitely have thrashy components for sure.
Mhm.
But Sanctuary disbanded, and Worrell and the bassist Jim Shepard formed Nevermore, and so they went on to do like seven like killer albums that, in my opinion, not a weak album out of
Nope.
those. And again, another sad news story, right? Like Nevermore was kind of on hiatus. Then Worrell passed away of a heart attack in like
Yeah.
2017. So that's kind of sad. Number 8, we already talked about in previous podcasts. Nuclear Assault, formed by Dan
Yeah.
when he left, well, I guess he was fired from Anthrax. So he formed Nuclear Assault with John Connolly, but we talked about that already. And then one that I was inspired to from the Wacken Festival is KK's Priest.
Mm.
He, obviously KK Downing formed it in 2022. I think they're great albums. I mean, they definitely
Yep.
sound like Priest, so you can't say it's original. And they brought back Tim Ripper. He brought in Tim Ripper Owens to do the vocals, who's a great vocalist. So I like both those tracks. And then I mean, some of these you can argue is it a side project, or is it a new band? Some of them are bands, some of them are maybe side projects, but they're all like 3 to 6 albums. So I don't know if you'd call them side projects. But the
Mm.
master drummer Mike Portnoy, who left Dream
Oh yeah.
2010, and went on to do like 3 killer albums with the Winery Dogs,
Yeah.
strong albums with Sons of Apollo, Metal Allegiance, Adrenaline Mob, Flying Colors, the Neil Morse Band, the Neil Morse Solo Project, Liquid Tension Experiment, Transatlantic, 5 albums. The Neil Morse stuff was like 12 albums. I mean, the man had so many damn bands at once. It was crazy. I mean, he is definitely the hardest working musician in hard rock metal, 100%.
And he was in he even joined Avenged Sevenfold for one album.
Yeah. Like I didn't pick anything. The list is way longer. Like
I
I
know.
picked stuff that he did at least like 3 albums, so that it's not like just a one-off side thing. But yeah, then it's a whole list of other stuff. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
That's all I got. That's
okay, perfect. All right, cool. Good list, Billy. And Jim, go for it.
Yeah, I had some of the same ones as Billy.
Okay.
Start off with Halford. I mean, he had, I think in '98, the band 2, TWO. He did an album. Then he did like Fight, and then he did Halford. So, I mean, I kind of threw that on. I was having trouble too. I had Vinnie Paul and Dimebag as well with Damage Plan. Celtic Frost, Tom G. Warrior, and Triptychon. So I already brought those up. I had Dave Lombardo, who ended up forming Grip Inc. in 1993. Yes. So I put that on my list. But then I also put on Dan Spitz from Anthrax, who had a Christian...
Red Lamb.
Yeah, Red Lamb. Christian metal band. And I got to be honest with you, I was kind of searching for some, and I came across that. So I did play the album. It's not bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like the album.
I wanted to put that on there. I cheated a little bit, and Billy will be mad at me, but I threw Kerry King on there from Slayer. I know it's a cheat. I was running out of stuff, and I was like, when Billy had messaged, Kerry King, I don't want to talk, and I was like, damn it, I have him on my list. So, but obviously coming out of retirement to put together his band, and it means even more today because, well, now the demise of possibly Death Angel. But I've got Hank Sherman from Merciful Fate. This was another one that I came across because I had a hard time figuring out like Billy said, side projects to joining another band. So it had to be created. So, which was really good. He created a band called Fate, which was more of an arena rock band back in 1984. I think they had maybe one album, maybe two. I had my number 3 was Jason Newsted, obviously Echo Brain, and the Newsted 2013 album, which is an awesome album. I had my number 2 was Max Cavalera. I love Soulfly and Cavalera. I mean, he's one of the hardest working guys out there. And my number 1 was Dave Mustaine.
Megadeth,
he goes from Metallica to Megadeth, and it's funny. He's kind of, he was part of the creation in there. He wrote a lot of the guitar work for the first Metallica album, and a lot of the lyrics too, which ended up getting changed around. But still, to be that active in 2 of the top 4 big American bands, I think is pretty commendable. So that's my list. Some of the same as Billy, and just a cheap one there with Kerry. That was kind of an easy one.
All right, we're all gonna have I think we're all gonna be crossing over with some of these. It's just it is what it is. So I'll start with number 10. Now, of course, I had Agent Steel. I had to do Agent Steel Evildead.
It's true. Yeah.
They have to put in this list because this was the idea where I got the idea for the top 10 was from a podcast. So that's number 10. Number 9, I did put Violence Machine Head because it's got to be said. I mean, he did leave the band. He did start Machine Head, and whether you like Machine Head or not, they are a reputable band for quite a few years and still going on. So that's my number 9. Number 8. So Billy, you kind of stole my thunder there with that, and so did you, Jim. I did Rob Halford, but I did 2. I actually like. I think it was
album.
It was a bold thing because when he did this, he came out of the closet as a gay man, and he also decided to go into more kind of I guess 9 Inch Nails, maybe a bit of Marilyn
industrial.
Manson. He was wearing the makeup and he did the whole thing. I actually liked the album. I thought it was bold, but it was unique.
Yeah,
So
I got the album too. I thought it was
yeah,
okay.
yeah, I like the album. It was only one album, but it was interesting. And then I'm gonna go with I'll put Anthrax, Nuclear Assault. That's an easy one, of course. Dan Ilker leaving Anthrax to start Nuclear Assault. Here's one that might I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a cheat, but I think it's important. Celtic Frost. Then, if you consider Tommy Barron, who was a roadie for Frost and created Coroner, so I
Mhm.
think I mean that's a legitimate to me. I mean, like he was a musician, although he was a roadie at the time. But I think that's kind of neat that he left Frost to some degree. He wasn't playing with them, but to form Coroner. And Coroner's a great band. You can't go wrong with Coroner. They don't get enough love or talk these days. And then I put Sepultura, Soulfly. Yeah, I have to do that because I'm a Soulfly fan, and I love the fact that he went on from Sepultura to do that. So it's got to be mentioned. Here's one that no one mentioned, so I thought this is interesting. At the Gates, who the Boiler Brothers, both Jonas and Anders, left to form Haunted, and I love Haunted. Haunted was a great band. I just love that sound. So I think that's kind of unique. And then Billy had this already on his Sanctuary and Nevermore. I mean, obviously that's the big one. Warren Dane and Jim Shepard leaving to form Nevermore, but it's significant. It needs to be mentioned. Then I have one that you guys didn't mention either, and I'm going to put Carcass here for when Michael Amott was a member of Carcass from 90 to 93, left, and then started Arch Enemy. So that's significant in a lot of ways because Arch Enemy is a pretty solid band. And then my number one for me will always be Celtic Frost Triptychon because I love Triptychon and I love the fact that he left that band and walked into his new outfit, and so that's my top 10.
Cool.
That's great. Yeah, that was a hard one.
Yeah, it kind of, I mean, really, it was. I mean, so when Billy brought it up, I was like, yeah, I guess you got a point. It's not coming up with 10 thrash bands could be really hard. And like Billy said, if you didn't like that band, what would you want? Why would you put that on your list? Because it's bands you like on your list. So I get it. I mean, I totally get what you were saying.
I was gonna put Chuck on there.
Yeah,
Death,
I had it on my list too.
But
Yeah.
I didn't know if Control Denied would be like, I don't know. I mean, we don't know where he was going. Like, was that the new? Like, I know it was new, but was Death done at that point? I mean, you don't know,
yes.
right? So,
well,
like, I don't know if it was
supposedly
just...
he said it was, but
Oh, okay. See, I was confused. I was like, because then I was thinking like something like Armored Saint with Category 7, and then you guys brought it up that's more of a side project, and and it, like, because obviously Armored Saint is probably his main focus, and a lot of, I mean, God, I think Phil Demmel's in that band as well as Kerry King, so like it's just kind of everybody's doing a side project there. So I was kind of didn't want to throw in side projects or anything like that.
yeah.
Anyways, that was fun doing the work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Billy, I like the fact that when you're on your plane trip back, you wrote all this down of a top 10 ideas. It was like, oh, that's great. Now we have like a list to work from.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I was like, this is great because it's great because you're gonna eventually we're running out of like top 10s, and so we got to come up with like creative ways to make it work, right? So I loved your list. It was like you put your thinking cap on, and we got a whole huge list of things we could work from in future. So, all right. So, does anyone have any final thoughts before we sign off tonight?
I'm good.
You're good. All right.
No.
So, before we go, don't want to forget this. We will be announcing that next week we are doing Tankard, and we are finally getting to them. They're the last of the big German four we haven't covered yet. And we're going to be covering Chemical Invasion from 1987. So that should be a pretty good one. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.
Great.
See you later.
Have a night.